Devil in a red dress. Call 911 on my killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang, bang, got my hand on the trigger. The devil in a red dress. Call 911 on my killer. You know I hate to confess.
YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Guys, today we are going to break down Watts Bar Reservoir. You know, that was the 7th stop of the Bassmaster Opens and that one tournament that put me in contention to try to make the Bassmaster Elite Series. But if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you do so. We'll be posting a lot of content this fall, so you're not going to want to miss any of that good content. So let's break down Watts Bar. You know, going into that particular tournament, I'd been to Watts Bar one time before. You know, and that time, I'd actually gone up there and practiced for an FLW Tour event. We were on Chickamauga, but they gave us the availability to lock into Watts. I spent a day up there and caught like 22 pounds. So I was a little bit familiar, but that particular time that I went there, they were offshore, they were deep, and there was a lot of them. But I ended up not going there in the tournament during that FLW tournament. I ended up staying down and kind of surviving on Chickamauga. But that was when, you know, you could actually go on the ledges and catch a bunch of fish, and it was just really, really good. So it was really hard to run away from Chickamauga. But let's jump into this particular event. You know, this tournament, I was a little nervous about this one. Like I said, I'd only been there one time. I didn't really get any information about the lake other than just doing some basic research on the internet and stuff like that, doing a lot of map study on Google Earth. But I felt very good going into the tournament. But let's go to practice real quick. You know, you talk about practice, you talk about what you do in practice and how you break down bodies of water. The very first day of practice, I went to a general area that I honestly thought it would go down in, or that I believed that the best concentration of fish lived in. And I ran all through there, and there was a ton of boats, and everybody kind of had the same idea, evidently. And I fished a bunch of grass, and it was really random. You know, every bite was super, super random. And I never could really figure out what I wanted to do. I had like zero identity that day, and I'd called Pangrak, and I was like, hey, you know, I'd went to the dam that evening, and I'd caught a couple of really good fish, and I was like, you know what, I might just go spend the whole tournament at the dam. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't. But one thing I noticed, I was running around, was just the insane amount of laydowns that I saw on that particular body of water. So, you know what I did that next day, I launched up there by where we were staying, and I said, you know what, I saw a laydown, and I tied on a Strike King Game Hog. And it's just a bait that I really like to flip, especially when the fishing's kind of tough or you're not dealing with larger than average fish. And the first flip I made with it, literally the first flip in a laydown that I made, I caught a 2.5 pounder. And a 2.5 pounder on that particular body of water, especially that time of year, is a pretty good fish. I catch that fish, I pick up a top water, I get 3 or 4 bites. I get to the very next laydown, I flip in there, get another bite, I shake it off. I'm like, okay, this isn't too bad. And then I catch another little one on, you know, flipping a laydown. Now I'm 3 for 3 on laydowns. And this is practice, you know, okay? So I hadn't fished a tournament yet, but this is practice. And I had a shorter than normal practice. I had a lot of stuff going on. Still have a lot of stuff going on. And the very next laydown I come to, I flip in there, and I get one, eats it. I think it's a little one. I set the hook, and it's another like 2.5 to 3 pounder. At this point, I'm like, okay, I already know what I'm going to go do. So I just start running around, and I end up getting that day at like 25 or 30 bites. And I'm, you know, flipping laydowns, throwing top water, just kind of junk fishing around, flipping docks. I had a bunch of bites flipping docks. So I was like, man, this isn't too bad. Well, fast forward in the tournament, I'd kind of dialed in a certain area of the lake. I had 2 sections of the lake, one on the upper end and one on the lower end. Well, the lower end I found on the very last day of practice, and I felt like my quality was a little bit better there. So I start out the tournament, and I go in this one little grass area that I'd had a few bites in, and nothing. But I go out to the mouth of it, and I catch my first keeper of the day, flipping, you know, a laydown that I never even flipped in practice. It just, I saw it, and I was like, that sets up right. Pull over there, got bit. So I run around, I start running some of my laydowns, and the problem was during practice we had almost no wind. It was dead calm almost every day. Well, that particular day we had a lot of wind blowing in, And as you can tell in some of the noise in the video, you know, the wind was blowing pretty good. Now, there weren't big waves, but when you're flipping laydowns, I think it really disrupts how the fish set up. And I've always believed that. I don't care if you're flipping bushes, laydowns, docks. If there's a lot of wind on those particular things, the fish just kind of reposition a little bit in a different way. And they're just harder to break down. You know, like what I was starting to figure out is on these particular laydowns, it would take me flip after flip sometimes to get a bite. You know, sometimes 10 flips in one laydown just to get the fish to bite. You know, so I catch another keeper once again off a place that I never even practiced. I just started running any laydown that I saw and that I'd marked on Google Earth. I just started running like specific waypoints that I saw a tree blown down. And when I say there's a ton of laydowns, I've never in my life been to a body of water that had more laydowns than Watts Bar. I mean, they were literally everywhere. I pull up to this one laydown that had a couple bites off of in practice, and I caught 5 fish off of it. 2 keepers, and I lost easily one of the biggest fish of the day. It was like a 2.5 to 2 3/4 pounder. And it was one of those where I went to swing it and it come off. Which, you know, when you're flipping, I'm flipping 25-pound test, Strike King Contra fluorocarbon, and I mean, you're not going to break that fish off flipping. I mean, it's a 2.5 pounder. I thought it was hooked better than what it was. I actually saw the fish come out and eat it, reel down, set the hook, and I evidently just didn't let her take it long enough because the hook was on the outside of the mouth and she just come off in the air. And literally the next flip, I catch another keeper. But I roll around and I go to this one little stretch I'd kind of saved for that afternoon. I catch my biggest of the day, catch another keeper on top of that. I go to a dock, skip under there, and this is the crazy thing. You know, like, we all have those stories about how we lost fish, why we lost fish, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to set this up for you. So I get to this dock, and it had a completely covered walkway, one of those real wide walkways. And I make a skip with a Wakiri Docho. I skip over a board that was flush with the water. So you had a board, you had this gap, and then you had the dock. So I skip it through here, it goes over a pipe, okay? And I'm trying to work it over the pipe, and one eats it. And I feel it thump it on the other side of the pipe. So I set the hook. I immediately know it's a good one. I drag it over the pipe. I get it over the board. So I made it through this little space. And I mean, I've only got 10-pound test. So just to make it through those obstacles alone for a 3.5-pound bass is pretty dang good. A lot of times that doesn't work out that way. So I get it over everything, and I'm get it all the way to the front of the boat, and it's just swimming. It's just swimming by my trolling motor, and it swims over there, and it just comes off. Opens its mouth, and comes off. Why it didn't come off on the other side of the board, why it didn't come off on the other side of the pipe, I honestly don't know. But that basically wrapped up day one, and it was kind of, I'm not going to say devastating, but it was really disappointing because, yes, I had a decent bag of bass. Was it the bag of bass that I was really going for? No. I really thought I could catch 11, 12, 13 pounds, and I hooked that. I hooked a couple really good ones and lost both of them. I mean, just had some bad luck situations. But I was sitting in pretty good shape. I want to say I was like 50-something after day one, maybe 40-something. I don't know. It was something like that. And going into day two, I was pretty excited, because I've got a whole section of the lake that I hadn't even been to yet. And I was shaking off, 25 or 30 fish up there. And there's a lot of water to run. Well, that day I start out with a frog. I start out with a KVD sexy frog. And I'm just walking it under undercut banks. I catch a keeper right off the bat with the frog, and it's a decent one. It's like a 2-pounder, and I'm like, heck yeah! Like, I'll take a 2-pounder every day. Okay, well, and then I catch one on a buzzbait going down a riprap bank.
I hope it keeps.
And all that time, I've been flipping trees. Nothing. And can't seem to catch a fish. And I'm like, man, did they get off the trees? I can't figure it out. Then I catch another keeper. Not on, all right, I do catch one keeper flipping. But I mean, it was dead. It was like they were gone. And I flipped a lot of places. I mean, a ton. And all I was catching was little fish. And that's when I was even catching one. It was almost like it was a ghost town. So I made the audible late in the day with only a couple fish to run all the way back down the lake. I get down there. I go to a couple sets of trees, nothing. And then I go to the dock where I lost the 3.5 pounder. And I skip up under there. One eats it. I set the hook and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got her again. And it was like this big. I'm like, gosh darn it. Like, like just the bad luck. It's just one of those things. And I was kind of upset. Actually, at this point, I only got 2 fish. Okay, so I caught the buzzbait fish and the frogfish. And so I'll go around the other side of the dock, and I'm just hitting poles with the wacky rig. And I flip up to a pole, and my line ends up underneath the dock. And I'm like, oh my gosh, one's got it. Set the hook, 3 pounder, catch it, land it. No problem. It wraps me up on the dock. It wraps me up on everything. I still land it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got number 4. Or number 3 at this point, and I make a couple more casts. I'm like, hey, I know I got a tree down here I want to go hit. So I run down there to go run to this tree, and I look over to these set of docks, and I have not seen a boat fish this set of docks the last 2 days. And you start paying attention to where people are and where they aren't. I pay attention more where people are not because I want to fish water that's more fresh. And I was like, you know what? I hadn't seen anybody fish that dock. Well, I'll pull over there with my wacky rig doche, make you one skip, catch number 4. I'm like, man, they're on the docks today. Well, I start running docks, and it's like bang, 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 and I'm just catching little ones. Gosh darn it. Well, I get about 30 or 40 minutes left in the day, and I was like, you know what? I need to go back to that tree that I caught those 5 bass off of. I still haven't even gone there yet. I'd just been running a lot of brand new water. I run back over to that tree, and literally my first cast in there, one eats it, set the hook, catch it, and when I say it was a board burner, like, that's an understatement. I mean, it was barely, like, I got it to touch twice. I put it in there reluctantly, and I knew I didn't have much time left, and I needed the points, and I literally stand up. My coiler's been casting the same tree this whole time that I'm trying to measure this fish and all that, and he's not catching anything. I turn around, I reset, and I make one just bomb cast in the middle of the tree. Another one hits it. The 15.5 pull that fish. I literally have almost no time left. I make the run back in. I end up finishing 27th place. A huge step in the right direction for my points. I moved up to 16th in points in the opens after that particular event. I mean, what could go wrong? I've got 2 tournaments left. I've got a chance to make the Elite Series. I've moved up significantly in the points. I guess you're going to find out here in just a minute. We'll see you on the next one.